Welcome to another episode of the I Know a Guy podcast. On this episode, we welcome Carolyn Tate. Carolyn's been a registered nurse for over 40 years. She's going to talk about what it's like to work with patients as they transition to the next life, the blessings and burdens of healthcare, and how she's helped patients remove rings, bottles, pumpkins, and more from their... anyways, enjoy this episode of the I Know a Guy podcast. Today, Carolyn Tate is in the house.
In the house.
Is Carolyn Tate fine?
Yes.
Okay, because I don't want to say your full name because it's like 50. I'm joking. All right, so here's the deal. This we're gonna title this the Nurse's Diary. You've been an RN? Is it?
Yes, been an RN for this is my 40th year.
40?
40.
How is the business?
Business sucks. Can I say that?
You can say whatever you want as long as it doesn't impact your job.
No. It is a difficult time right now to be a healthcare worker.
Really?
Yes.
Is that because of COVID and stuff, or just in general?
It started before COVID, but with COVID, a lot of the younger nurses that had come out chose to travel where they could make the money, and us old gray hairs stayed because we're looking at retirement around the block, so we don't go out and travel. Or
if you have, kids, you can't travel.
No, you can't. You can't. So it kind of landlocked us, so they're working us to death.
Okay, so any crazy stories that you've got that have just, and it doesn't have to be gory, because producer Jake knows I'm not a gory person.
Yeah, Ben doesn't like sharks.
No, not that kind of stuff. But anything like, so I'll give you an example, right? I was talking to this nurse one time, and she said to me that there were, I guess, 2 hospital beds, and there was a guy there was a kid in one of them, and I'm not sure if the one next door had died, but they brought him in. I don't know if he was decapitated, but whatever happened, listen to me now. The kid said, "Why did that guy get up with no head on," basically, but the guy went up like his soul or spirit, and they saw it, a ghost, essentially. You ever heard like a story like that before in the hospital where somebody sees some kind of apparition or something?
Oh, absolutely. I've seen it myself.
Oh, stop.
Yeah. I've had patients that have passed away that we have had the fortune of being in the room to be with them as they transition, and you can feel a presence, and you can feel the soul leave the body. And if you're in tune to it, and if you stop for a second to understand what's happening to that patient, and a lot of times our eyes are the last eyes they see. And you meet all that with compassion and love and pray for their journey.
But did you see something physically too?
Yes. You see a white mist.
Really?
It's kind of a white mist that it's very faintly detectable, but if you if you watch and notice that there's a change in temperature in the room, and there's a white mist that will physically leave the body. Okay.
All right. So this can't go left unchallenged. Is this something other nurses feel, see, kind of just know, or is it just you or one another?
No, it's many nurses that have been in the field as long as I have and have been around patients that have been critically ill or injured or trauma or something of that nature. It is a known thing, but there also are lots of superstitions that nurses have.
Tell me.
One of the superstitions are when I worked the unit, you would go in, you would get your patient assignment, and I worked night shift. First thing that I would do is I would tie a knot in the bed sheet in the foot of the bed. The top sheet that's over top of the patient, you just tie a little knot in the corner of it, and that wards off death till morning.
What?
It's an old nurse superstition.
Give me more.
It's a nurse superstition. We had a patient one time that was arresting, and
Arresting. What's that mean? Like
he,
cardiac arrest?
He was in cardiac arrest, and he was not doing well, but there was, still cardiac activity on the monitor. And as long as there's cardiac activity on the monitor and the family wants you to proceed, then you proceed with the code. And you
Code is shocking them?
Mm-hmm, you continue doing whatever you have to do until there's no cardiac activity on the monitor. We had a nurse that had taken care of this gentleman multi-nights, and she was getting an assignment on her own patients, but she saw what was going on in the room, and she walks in the room with an armful of linen, reaches over, pats this gentleman on the leg, and says, "It's okay. You can walk on into the light." Cardiac activity ceased.
Time out. Jake, I'm calling timeout in here. Timeout. Was it an actual nurse or somebody that walked in?
Yeah, it was a nurse that worked in the unit.
The family saw her do that?
No, the family was outside in the ICU lounge. They weren't with the patient.
But you think they kind of felt? Did this nurse do that because they felt like it's time?
Yeah,
you fought, and it's
someone had to give him permission that it was okay for him to go. And that happens a whole lot. That happens a lot. Patients will choose at that point. They will choose to sometimes transition on when the family's not there. That's their choice. And it's what they prefer. And that's a God thing. I mean, it's not something that you can actually, you can put some statistical data with it, but not all. But we've had some things that have gone on, like similar to that. If you have a patient that you think is going to arrest, you pull the code cart outside their room, outside their cubicle, and leave it. That's another thing that wards off death till morning, or wards off bad juju.
What's the thought, like death till morning? What's the thought? Just getting through the night, maybe, or
getting them through the night, getting them to where maybe family can be there or someone can be there with them.
How do you, as a nurse, keep it? I don't want to say together, but moving forward, knowing that you do this every day, you see death all the time, but every patient matters, right?
Every one of them does. Every single patient matters. That's why I have so much white hair. Every one of them matters. I've left a patient's room, gone to the bathroom, cried, got myself together, and gone back and taken care of them. I have stood there and cried with the family. I've stood there and cried with the patient. There's no shame in my game. I do whatever you're led to do. I mean, it's a serious thing. It's a serious job. But you have to have some humor. You have to have a little dark humor. Anyone that is married to a nurse, has a nurse in their family, a doctor in their family, any of that nature, are brave souls, because we have 6 senses of humor, very dark senses of humor, and we laugh at the most inappropriate times. So.
Yeah, I could never be a nurse, doctor. I couldn't do any of that stuff.
Yeah.
I can barely look at a needle when it's going in my arm. All right, so let me ask you a question. COVID. I don't care to get into the politics of it, where people believe or don't believe, but
right.
You worked in the hospital during that time?
Yes.
And you saw what transpired, like your hospital beds were full?
Every open bed that we had the staff for. We did not have a lot of staff. That we had the staff for was open and full. We cohabitated the patients on a unit that was strictly for what we call walkie-talkies. In other words, patients that were able to communicate, not on a ventilator, just where we were providing supportive care, oxygen, medicines, stuff like that. We had them on one floor. Any emergent surgical patient went to another floor. And we did emergency cases, back when COVID was going on. And, of course, our ICUs were full. Our ERs, I work in what I would call not as large of a hospital as UF is, but I work in a pretty large hospital, and our ICUs were full. We would have, and the floors were full. We would have sometimes 50 to 75 to 90 patients that were holding for beds in the ER. Some had been there for days.
Did you ever have people show up that were like, I'm testing positive for COVID and want to get checked out in the hospital, but they maybe didn't meet the criteria to get a room or something?
Yes. And
But they were just scared maybe?
Yes, frequently. And at that point, you assign them, you check them in, you assign them a number, and we had part of the ER quarantined off to where you had patients with like symptoms. Of course, everyone was masked, and you had patients with like symptoms that were on the other side of the ER, and then the ones that came in with their arm cut, broken leg, etc., were on another side of the ER.
What do you think's happening now? Now that no one's counting COVID, it's around, but the beds aren't full anymore.
Beds are not as full anymore, but the staffing situation has not changed. We're still struggling with staffing. We are.
Is that across the country, you think?
Across the country. This is not just us.
And why? Is it like same reasons maybe all businesses are struggling, or is nursing in particular?
It's like all businesses are struggling. Nurses that are my age are leaving the profession because of the stress and the workload that's put on us. The young ones, the baby nurses, as I call them, all the babies are either going back to school to be nurse practitioners, or they're taking these thousands and thousands and thousands of dollar jobs as travelers.
Making more money?
Making 4 times the amount of money I am. Mm-hmm.
Really?
Yes.
And traveling, what is that? So a traveling nurse, do they have to pay for their own hotels, or they get per diem?
No, they get per diem. They get a per diem for lodging. It's according to what your contract is. Your contract is usually for 13 weeks. You go in, you work at a facility for 13 weeks. That means that you learn their EMR system and hit the floor running.
Okay, hold on.
Yeah.
She just did something. So producer Jake knows that I mess with AI a little bit of the chat stuff. And she dropped an acronym.
What'd she say?
EMR?
EMR.
What's that stand for?
Oh, I'm sorry. It's electronic medical record.
All right. So they do that, they learn the processes, and then work there for 13 weeks?
Because not every hospital functions under the same type of EMR. Some are Cerner, some are Epic, some are just different types of programs that you have to learn how to chart and how to give meds through.
Have y'all used a medical manager? I think it's called.
I'm not familiar with medical manager. I know some of the offices use Athena, but I'm not familiar with that one.
Okay, never mind.
Yeah.
All right, so quick segue, because you did an acronym. I've got a list of 20 here. What's funny?
The acronym made you think of something else. Okay, I like it.
Yeah,
okay.
I go down rabbit holes.
You do.
I'll come back out of this one, though. All right, I'm going to read 5 acronyms for you that a registered nurse and RN should know.
Okay.
Now, I don't know if you should know this, but you would know.
I'll try.
All right. A CNS.
Central nervous system.
Okay, that sounds good. But this would be someone's job. So you have
CNA, certified nursing assistant.
This says clinical nurse specialist. You ever heard of that?
That's not what they're called in my hospital.
Okay, so let's go ahead and take that one off the list. Chat GPT is wrong on that one. All right. NPO.
Nothing to eat or drink after midnight.
Okay, this just says nothing by mouth.
Right.
Okay. Check. RBC.
Red blood cell count.
Yeah, got that one. I was going to say it's a bank or something.
Oh, I didn't know I was going to get
No,
a quiz.
you did
now
it.
I'm getting nervous.
You got this. Okay, this one here I think is tough, but I don't know. This says ADL.
Activities of daily living.
Are you kidding me? So that's a serious thing?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
That if a patient is essentially at 100% on their ADLs, it means they can function. They can feed themselves. They can walk, talk.
Okay.
Transfer without risk of falling.
Okay. Here. Okay. 2 more now. UA.
Urinalysis.
I'm
urine analysis.
Pardon me?
Urine analysis.
Urine analysis.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Or you can put it together, urinalysis.
That's what they do here.
Yeah.
Okay. WNL.
WNL.
NL. Do, 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 do.
I'm a little stuck on that one. Give me a hint.
Within something.
Oh, within normal limits. I'm sorry. I just had an Alzheimer's moment.
No, that's good. But is that something y'all use all the time? Common?
Within normal limits, yeah.
Okay, good stuff.
It is.
No, you did good because the one I thought was like ADL. I'm like, I don't know what that is. But there's like 20 here of different acronyms you guys use.
Yeah.
Okay. Is it a sisterhood with nurses?
Absolutely.
And it's fun? Or I know it's stressful. I know the job is stressful, but you have to have the lighter side.
I mean, it is. We do have a tendency to eat our young sometime, which, the old girls don't want to teach the new girls, and the new girls are the ones that's going to be taking care of the old girls. So that's, a little bit of a thing that is a no-no that you shouldn't do. You train them like you want them to be because they're going to be your nurse one day.
Let me tell you something. When my daughter was born, which now everybody will know if they don't already, your granddaughter, Olivia, she stopped breathing for a little bit in the thing, and I didn't know what was going on. It's my first kid, and she was just more blue. She wouldn't get a lot of oxygen, and all I know is this nurse came in that looked like a linebacker. She was no, I mean that in a good way. She came in because the nurse who was taking care of her at the time seemed nervous, and then that makes the parents nervous. Because if the nurse is calm, then we're good, right?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, this is probably normal. It's normal for a baby to turn blue. The nurse came in and just started hitting her on the back, turned her over and said, come on, you scaring your parents, stop playing around, and just then sucked her out and all this stuff. Because I think it's,
Right.
well, I don't know what that stuff's called. And then she was fine. But I tell you what, nurses, in my experience, seem to sometimes I'm not saying they know more than doctors, but let's just say I've seen diagnosis. Even I called you one time on the phone, and I spoke to another RN who diagnosed a family member of mine with something based on the symptoms, more so than the actual ER doctor even knew. It wasn't until they got a room into the regular hospital they diagnosed them with what the two RNs both said from the get-go before getting in the ambulance.
What was it?
It was a UTI that had gone, is it septic?
Septic. Mm-hmm.
Septic. And both RNs said that based on the symptoms, but the doctor was trying to say something else and actually said, no, it's not septic and it's not this. And then the doctor in the actual hospital, so I guess you have two sides, right? You have the ER, emergency room, and then you get an actual room, and then you're with other doctors and nurses.
Yeah, you're with an intensivist or a hospitalist is what they call them.
Well, that doctor in there said, no, you've got a UTI and it's gone septic. Septic?
Yes.
Okay. When I think of that, I think of septic tanks. So it's like hard. There's sepsis, right?
Sepsis is a process that goes throughout the body.
Okay.
Some of the sickest patients I've ever taken care of have had what we call urosepsis, have had urinary tract infections that have migrated to infections within the body. And when the infection gets systemic and they are septic, then you better be doing something. You better be doing something quick.
Because it can turn bad.
It can turn fatal.
And you've seen that?
Yes.
Ooh.
Yes.
All right. So any other traditions, anything that, or superstitions, things, or any funny stories?
Oh my gosh! I started to say this podcast doesn't have time for for all the messes that we've been in over the years. One of the first ones I remember was when I was a young nurse. I had been a nurse a year and was working in labor and delivery unit. Didn't know beans from apple butter. Was being taught by the older nurses on how to take care of a laboring patient. We had a nurse that worked in our ER that hated taking care of laboring patients. They scared her to death. Yeah. If you came in and you were pregnant, then she was getting your tail up to labor and delivery in 2 seconds because she didn't want to touch you. She was scared of you. And that's what the protocol was, is labor and patients went to labor and delivery. Well, she called me to come down there and get the patient that she was too scared to bring it up. So I thought, uh-oh, this is not going to be good. This is not going to be good. Well, I go down and get this patient, and she was a little redhead. Redheads are known to bleed worse. That is a definite through doctors and everybody. If you're a redhead, you're going to be a bleeder. She's a little redhead, and she comes and she's sitting sideways, pushing. And I said, honey, don't push. Do anything you can do not to push right now. And got her up to labor and delivery and got her in the bed, grabbed me some gloves, and caught me a 9-pound girl.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean.
So you delivered the baby?
Yeah, I delivered the baby.
Wow.
Like how you said it, like it's a fish.
Yeah. Delivered me a 9-pound
Got me a
girl.
9-pounder.
She was beautiful, too. And the doctor, we woke him up, and he comes in half in his pajamas and half asleep. And I had just delivered the placenta whenever he came in, and he made sure the lady had not gotten any tears or was not bleeding unnecessarily. And he goes, I wish you wouldn't call me in for this. You know what you're doing. This baby's fine. This patient's fine. And I of course, I was shaking all over, about to have a heart attack because I was scared to death.
That was the first baby you ever delivered?
First baby I'd ever delivered. And I said, sir, I respect that, but I do need your name on the birth certificate, not mine. So he did that. We've had numerous items that we have retrieved from body orifices.
Huh?
That's always fun.
Okay, so people just, things get lost?
Things get lost. things get lost. And we were, at one time we said we were going to get a plastic bin and have a collection. Let's see, the things that we have retrieved before have been a Coke bottle, a beer can.
You're not serious. This isn't real.
This is very real.
These are women mostly?
No.
Oh, my.
I'm not being sexist, but, women
Wow.
can usually give birth to a baby
Right.
unless the item happens to go south, in other words.
Wow.
But
That's going to be embarrassing for them.
that could be extremely embarrassing for them.
Was it mostly Bud Lights?
I think this was a Coors.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow, that's surprising.
It was a Coors. But we've had that. We've retrieved. My personal favorite was a candle and a gourd.
What's a gourd?
A gourd is
It's like a pumpkin, right?
It's kind of like a pumpkin.
They sell them in the fall time. You're not. This isn't
Yeah.
real.
Someone put a pumpkin
Yeah.
up there?
Yeah, someone put a pumpkin up there.
Dude.
I'm not laughing because that poor gourd.
That poor gourd. We've had
Our
a
nation has fallen.
Bic ink pen, and this was another favorite. The gentleman did not want to pay for Viagra, so he decided to take the ink pen part out of a Bic ink pen. You know, the clear ones
I know the pens that are clear,
that are clear.
but the ink's not clear.
No, but
Yeah,
you
yeah,
can
yeah.
pull the end of it out and pull the ink cartridge out, and the only thing that you're left with is the plastic.
The gel.
It's not gel. It's hard plastic. You see a lot of people come into the ERs that have those, that use those to snort coke with.
Oh,
But he decided he would use that to help with erectile dysfunction. That didn't work very
like
well.
a tent.
We had those.
I think. Can I say something? I think you need to have that music on like that, just like right up under while she's telling these stories.
Right.
To add
Yeah.
it- go ahead.
Yeah. What else?
Just keep going.
Keep going.
We're listening.
A size 14 men's wedding band
Huh?
that we had to cut off.
Cut off like
That was around this gentleman's privates.
really?
Yes.
Think you just got married?
To something.
Yeah. Wow.
He got married to something.
Your job is to help and save lives, but you're removing things from people.
All the time and dodging.
Let me ask this question. This is about to get serious. Do these people come in and act like they're in pain from something they don't know what they're in pain from, but they do know? Like, do they pretend like they don't really know? Do they say, hey, there's a pen or there's a gourd?
Usually when they come in, they are in so much pain that they're very, very truthful with the provider. They're straight up.
How dangerous is that stuff? I mean, I don't know if
it's
anybody studies it.
life-threatening.
Yeah.
It's life-threatening. Anything that
How'd
goes...
that Hot Wheels get in there?
exactly. Anything in the colon can, can perforate the colon.
Have y'all ever had to do like emergency surgery in the
Absolutely.
ruins? Yeah.
Absolutely. We've had to do a colostomy before on a gentleman.
What's that?
Make another
Oh no.
opening for him to pass feces through.
Oh,
because
so it's
he-
like a C-section, but for the other end, kind of.
Kind of, sort of,
Wow.
kind of.
You had to
Ooh.
reroute things.
Oh no,
Reroute
colostomy
things.
is the bag.
The bag,
Yes,
exactly,
okay,
that they poop from.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
We've had to do that because of that. Women usually don't get. Women do get stuff stuck, but it's the majority is men that come in
Wow.
that do. I mean, I'm not being sexist or anything like that, but
Yeah, you are.
But for-
Women too.
Yeah.
as one gynecologist told me, women have two places to hide things.
Good Lord.
Yeah.
Men only have one.
Right. So we got to get double the volume in there.
Double the points.
Right.
So,
Got to even the playing field.
nobody you've known personally that's been in front of you. I'm not going to ask names, but because that would be really embarrassing. Like, hey, Carolyn.
Well,
There's a
yeah,
Sharpie.
I've had a few people that I knew personally.
Just like you'd be surprised.
That's got to make it awkward.
It doesn't make it awkward because they come seeking me.
Oh, because they need you. They want you. And
Yeah, because they know
trust
me.
you.
They know me, and they know that I'm going to take care of them.
so when the doctor came to see you,
It wasn't me.
don't tell anybody.
It
Wow.
wasn't me. But we've had some. We had a guy that, of course, that ran naked down the street with a gown on. That was always a good one. We've had them hanging from the punch out the ceiling tiles, stand on the stretcher and punch out the ceiling tiles, and hang naked, swinging from the beams.
Really?
That's always fun.
Is that mental illness? That drugs?
Both.
Oof.
Both. Those are always a lot of fun. You get really, really good at running and dodging. You can
what do you-
dodge.
What about people who throwing stuff at you?
Oh
mean-
yeah, that's not unusual at all.
Really?
Yeah.
Can you strap their arms down or no?
No. You cannot restrain a patient unless there is a medical reason.
And who makes that call?
The nurse can make the initial call, but it has to be backed up by the physician, and you have to have a darn good reason.
Well, how do you protect yourself? You just get out of the
doing
way.
that. Well, you get out of the way. You call security if you have to. You do what you need to do
Mm.
in that circumstance, and you call the physician. We've had nurses punched. We've had nurses tackled. We had one little guy in the.
Can I stop you for a second?
Yeah.
You said you've had nurses punched, and
Yeah.
producer Jake's laughing. So I'm wondering if he's looking at a computer and like reading a story or something. You're not listening to what we're saying, right?
No, it's
Something else.
the viewers can see. It's just the thing.
So
I
you
just,
something went through your head.
Yeah, you also no.
He's still stuck on the
I need
pencil.
to censor it.
On the ink
Yeah.
pen.
Okay. All right. I got you. Is there a stigma with male nurses? Because you remember Meet the Fockers?
Oh yeah, yeah.
And it's like, you're a nurse. What's his name?
Ben
De Niro.
Stiller?
Robert De Niro is making
Oh.
fun of Ben
Uh-huh.
Stiller. You're a nurse, Focker? Is that a stigma, or do y'all have a lot of male nurses? Or
We don't have as many. I mean, I love seeing a male nurse because sometimes patients respond differently to a male nurse than they do a female nurse. They won't take as much crap sometimes from a male nurse, and won't give them as much crap. So I appreciate them very, very much. It's now that us old girls, we do laugh at some of them because they come in wearing in their little muscle shirts, wearing their real tight figs and and carrying their 18 gallons of water. I'm like, I'm
Yeah.
lucky if I can drink 2 ounces of water and get to pee one time a day. Who in the ever-loving hoots has time to drink 2 gallons of water and eat a chicken? I mean, so some of the male nurses are comical.
now,
Comical.
do nurses are you Are you the gatekeepers to the surgeons and the doctors?
Absolutely.
So here comes the sales rep.
Oh, no, not for them. They're on their own.
Oh, the sales reps are?
Yeah, they're on
Okay.
their own.
Okay.
We're actually not. I mean, now they will. If you have a salesperson selling an item and they hack off the office staff, then you just might as well forget it. You're not going to get in to see that doctor.
If they make the office staff mad,
Yeah,
disrespect them.
If you love on the office staff, then you're going to get to see that doctor.
Now, I'd always had this perception that as a female sales rep, they would have it very easy because they would have it very easy with male doctors going to see them because a male doctor would, it's a pretty female assuming the salesperson is pretty, but that they would get to see them. But I was told it's actually the contrary, that the male sales individuals have it a little easier because they've got to get to the doctor and they have to get through certain gatekeepers to do that. And those are oftentimes women to get them in. That it's harder for a female sales individual to get through that first line.
Well, it's really according to their attitude.
Okay.
If you've got someone that comes in or you've got someone that's kind and says, oh, here's you a bag of Hershey Kisses or, throws a few ink pens at you because they're not allowed to do anything anymore. They're not allowed to bring, gifts like ink pens or
the sales reps aren't? Is
or,
that a Tennessee thing?
It's a federal thing.
Really?
Yeah. They're not allowed to do that anymore because some of them were bad boys and were essentially buying doctors off by giving them vacations, game tickets, et cetera, and being naughty. So it ruined it for all sales reps.
Ooh.
And so the sales reps now they'll buy lunch, because they're allowed to have food. They can have, they can bring in food. Okay. That's not against the rules. And they do very, very kind stuff. It's hard work being a medical sales rep because of the fact that you have to deal with so many personalities. You've got to be adaptable and really be good at your job.
And being a medical sales rep is more than just selling. You have to be sometimes in the operation room.
Yeah. Well, yeah, absolutely. You get to go in with your product and see what it does. I mean, when we had the Stealth and the Da Vinci, the robots and all this stuff, the reps are all in there. They're there, troubleshooting if there's any problems or teaching about the product as the operation is going on, actually. So they're extremely knowledgeable on their product and very, very good.
Do you ever see a doctor doing something, let's say maybe a newer doctor doing something that may be wrong? And I don't mean unethical. I mean, it's just probably not the proper way to do something. And do you correct them?
No, you don't correct them. Simply the fact that it would be like telling someone how to bake a cake. If you have the right outcome, then if you do B before you do C, then that's your technique. And you don't always know their always know their technique and what it is. It's up to if you have a situation to where you feel something is wrong, then you take it up through the chain of command. You take it to the supervisors, the people that need to know, and if it's something significant, it goes all the way to the ethics board, and then they go in front of the bad doctor review.
Ooh.
Yeah, and their privileges can be suspended, or they can, they can lose their license if it's something horrible.
In an emergency room and or a regular room, who's in charge? Is it the doctor, the presiding doctor, or are there different doctors?
If you're in a hospital room, you have usually a myriad of doctors. Let's say you have a heart attack. If you have a heart attack, you're going to go in.
Bring the mic like a little bit
closer,
or point it at you more.
Nobody's ever had any trouble hearing my big mouth. Okay. But you have several physicians that come in. You have a hospitalist that manages your medications, manages your initial care. You will have a cardiologist say that manages the cardiac part of it, and then they're in there for maybe 5 minutes a day if you're lucky, and the rest of the 23 hours and 50 minutes you have us.
Who gets paid the most money?
Who do you think?
Right.
And it ain't us.
All right, so I'm going back to my chat stuff here.
I want to
Go ahead, Jake.
I want to know why people eat the placenta.
That is an old.
Time out. What did you just say?
People eat the placenta.
I've never heard of that.
Yes.
Well, I have.
That's,
Well, okay, I know, but I've heard the placenta can be. There's cord blood,
mm-hmm.
and the placenta they save it for something, but not eating. Was this a
No.
fried egg?
No, people
No,
eat the placenta.
They
man.
eat the placenta.
Stop.
And the stem cells come from the what's it called?
The cord
baby
blood.
root. What's it
All
called?
right.
Yeah, the cord blood.
Okay. Can we?
Anyways,
All right.
placenta.
I know you asked a question, but I'm not there yet.
We'll get there. You just heard me ask. She's about to answer.
I can't believe that you're asking this question. I can't believe this is even real. You're telling me there's people
Mhm.
who eat the placenta.
Yes.
They eat it on the spot. They put salt and pepper on it. They cook it. Like, serious.
Okay, seriously. You
Okay,
want to
I want
know.
the seriously no.
Okay, I don't want to gross you out.
No,
You're not
do
gonna
it.
gross me out. Do it. You're
Gross
fine with
yourself.
this. You're fine with this.
Okay, a lot of times
He likes sharks.
a lot of times it happens with home births. And
Okay.
a lot of times it can be culture related.
Okay.
And we had one patient that my friend's a midwife, and she delivers, and she's wonderful at what she does. And literally, she had a patient that was in a phenomenal home, and not the least bit lacking money wise.
Mm-hmm.
And that she said that all of her 5 children, that they put the placenta in a blender with tomato juice, and she drinks it after the baby is born because it gives her back iron and nutrients. Obviously, it hadn't killed her with all the other babies.
No. All right.
So,
Hang on, Jake. I just have a quick question.
yeah.
How
after
big is the
boring.
placenta?
It can be various sizes.
Give me an average size.
An average size, probably the size of a small
Pizza?
personal pizza.
10 inches?
It's like a ham steak they're eating.
I'm sorry.
You guys are bad.
I'm not bad because I'm not trying to judge. Now, if it's cultural, I get it. And if
Yeah.
someone's done it out there that's listening, I'm not judging you. But this is a foreign concept in my mind. And so, you know how comedy works, Jake?
Yeah, I'm hilarious.
You are funny. It works by
Yeah.
tricking the brain, right? A good comedian takes you down the road and you have no clue what's behind the door, and then you get there and you start laughing. That's where I'm at right now because you said something that caught me off guard. Every many people ate their placenta.
Mm-hmm.
Did the kids eat the placenta or the parent?
The mother.
Because it helps the mother.
The mother.
Are there any like midwives that like you know how people steal food from your plate at a restaurant? Like, does that ever happen with midwives and placenta?
No.
Okay.
People steal babies.
Now, the placentas in the hospital,
Mm-hmm.
if they're not, if the patient has already agreed with her obstetrician, they can draw cord blood, and that's drawn out of the vessel. There's 3 vessels in an umbilical cord, 2 veins and an artery, and they draw as soon as the baby is born. They draw cord blood anyway, but then they draw extra if the mother or if the family chooses to bank that blood for stem cell in the event that the child were to ever need it for any reason. But they will do that. But then the placenta itself is just like if you took a gallbladder out or if you took an appendix out, goes to the lab.
Jake, you have a lot of knowledge. Go ahead, Jake.
What about-
Ask another one.
I just want to know about what about adrenochrome? Do you know anything about that? Adrenochrome. It's what they say the elite are draining out of babies to become immortal.
Oh heavens, that sounds like a good vampire movie. No,
It's pretty much the plot of every vampire movie. But yeah, that's what the QAnoners believe is that. Let me look it up.
Jake is
Chrome.
full of knowledge.
I'm a genius.
I see that.
Adrenochrome is a chemical compound produced by the oxidation of adrenaline, epinephrine. It was the subject of limited research of the 1950s through to the 1970s as a potential cause of schizophrenia. Oh, wow. But anyways, they say, like, Alex Jones will say that, like, Bill Gates is, like, sucking adrenochrome out of, like, babies. And I don't know. I didn't know if you knew anything about that. I didn't know if adrenochrome was, like, actually
will now
good for you.
research
Or
it.
I kind of call BS on that.
Okay.
Mm.
You know,
Well, you can do that. 40 years in nursing.
Yeah.
You can
I'm
do
pretty
it.
comfortable calling BS on that one.
But no offense, Alex Jones is pretty reputable.
No.
Joke. Didn't land.
I didn't hear the all
But
right. So, thank you, Jake, for that. Do you remember
My
the
pleasure.
nurse that was sad, real sad, killing the babies in the what do you call that? I'm about to say EQ, the
Incubator?
PQ, the
Mm-hmm.
babies.
I do. I remember that.
Y'all ever have a situation like that? You ever have someone that's doing something like intentionally that you've ever worked with or seen?
I have been very, very fortunate. I have never experienced that.
I would so come unglued. Like I think physically, if I saw and knew it was happening.
Yeah, that would be. Yeah, that would not be good.
What about? I think one of the things, probably more so for the mother than the father, but I can't say I didn't think about it, is when they take your baby from you after the baby's born,
Mm-hmm.
and that there's a mix-up, right? And you took the wrong baby home. That ever happen? I mean, you've seen it happen,
has
or
happened.
really?
It has happened, and I'll tell you who it happened to.
Who?
It happened to my uncle, my dad's brother.
Really?
Yes. Now, this is back in the 40s, the early 40s. So this is not like right now.
Okay.
My grandmother gave birth to him at a little teeny tiny country hospital. And back then, they braceleted babies, and you know they would bracelet them and kind of do their thing with them. And when they got ready to go home, they really didn't check IDs. They didn't check bracelets. They didn't do anything like that. They just said, "Okay, Mrs. Jones, here's your baby, and here's this little baby that's all bundled up."
Yeah, you got a little hat on
and,
them.
and snuggled up and a little hat on, and the mother's just, of course, no car seat, no nothing like that back then. They just brought them home. My grandmother remembers, and my dad remembers this too, of laying the baby on the bed and unwrapping the baby, and my grandmother saying, "This is not my baby." Because-
Maternal instinct, or
Well, no, this little child was very light skinned, just had red hair. My grandmother and grandfather both were green eyed and black hair. And of course, I know genetics kind of can do stuff, but it wasn't her baby. And she said within probably 5 minutes before they had time to wrap the baby back up and go back to the hospital with it, a vehicle pulled up from the hospital with a nurse carrying my uncle,
wow.
carrying the correct baby.
And they just
And they just switched babies.
that's kind of like a Jake, what's that called? Door app. They delivered the baby. Can you deliver DoorDash? You can deliver my baby.
DoorDash, can you just
Wow.
deliver me a green-eyed, blonde-haired one?
Wow.
Yeah.
So that did happen.
So that did happen. Yeah, there are so many checks and balances right now to prevent that from happening. Of course, you know, the baby's braceleted just like when the girls were born. The babies are braceleted twice. They have one on their arm, one on their leg,
Okay.
and then the one on their leg, as you know, alarms.
Oh,
And you get that baby anywhere towards an exit, then you've got some alarms going off that are serious. And you have, usually it's a locked unit, which the girls were born on a lock, on a locked unit. So you have to essentially be let in, let out, and every time a nurse has to have a special, our nurses have to have a special little icon thing on their badge that shows that they are allowed to take a baby to the nursery. And the mothers are taught this. They're taught that you do not give your baby to anyone except, someone that has the icon,
Yeah.
and now mostly everything, unless the baby is sick, is done in the room.
I remember with, I don't know if it was Emma or Olivia. I'm thinking it was Emma. It was the second time, and I think Emma had been gone a while. And I think she was having trouble breathing. Maybe it was the mucus. What do you call it? Amniotic or
Amniotic fluid.
Amniotic fluid or something like that. Yeah. And I think the nurse, I won't say the nurse lied. Let's just say the nurse covered up a little bit, saying, "Oh yeah, she's fine. We're just giving her a bath and taking care of her." And I think she was getting her sucked out more and all the other stuff.
Stimulated.
Because it was like 4 a.m. It was just, this is when we're all in bed and stuff like that. And I remember my wife, your daughter, was like freaking out, like, "Where's my daughter? Where's my kid?" Because naturally, like, hey, you're supposed to be 15 minutes. A wash, it's been 45 minutes.
Well, it's very scary.
Yeah.
It's very scary.
What?
Because we watch so much on TV
Mm-hmm.
of bad people doing bad things, and that's in the back of our mind when we're in the hospital or anything happens. I mean, that's just always in the back of your mind.
What's your biggest advice to people who go to the hospital, like if they're trying to take care of a loved one? Maybe in terms of patient, being an advocate for your family member or whoever you're with.
Stay with them. Be an advocate. Ask questions and questions and questions. When the doc comes in, if your questions are not answered, stop him. He's not doing this for free.
Mm.
You stop him until your questions are answered. And, you have a right in the Patient's Bill of Rights when you sign into a hospital to know what is happening and how you're being cared for and how your family is being cared for. Always ask questions.
Right.
If something ain't right, it usually ain't right. So be an advocate for, if you feel that, then say, "Hey, Dad's never done this before. This is new. You've been around Dad for 80 years. I've been around him for 10 minutes. So if this ain't right, then we need to see why it ain't right."
Mm-hmm.
Point the microphone a bit more closer, or like at your mouth, like you're trying to.
Does it keep turning down? There.
Do I need to bite it?
Yes.
There's little knobs on it. Be careful.
Right.
Be
Just
careful.
make sure the circle's like pointed at you.
It bites first.
Maybe
Okay.
it's falling back or something. Yeah. Okay. That's good advice. All right. Yeah. Look, I love nurses, and because I know how much you guys, the knowledge you have, it seems like you're so diverse. I'm not ever going to try to separate other, officials or personnel that are in the hospital not knowing, but nurses have to see so much stuff. I know there's different units, but a lot of people have worked in different places, pediatric, ER, cancer, heart, all kinds of stuff. So you sort of have like this general knowledge and expertise and of seeing stuff. And I've always been very impressed when I turn to nurses when I ask questions, not necessarily doctors.
We try. I mean, that's the best that we can do is try. Is try to meet try to meet a patient's needs and be an advocate for the patient. I mean, like I said, you get an old white hair like me, you get a bulldog because, somebody's saying, "Well, maybe, kind of, sort of,
That don't work.
Don't work. We need a plan here.
Yeah.
Or I'll keep calling you at 3 o'clock in the morning. And then I'll call you at 3:05. I'll call you at 3:10, 3:20 until I get what I need for that patient. I don't care how much I bug you. You're not doing it for free.
I had a friend whose wife was in the hospital and just felt like they weren't getting any care. And it was almost, I don't want to use the word not humane. Everybody's experiences are different, but it seemed that way. And it was kind of communicated that in pain, just laying there for hours and hours and hours with no real response.
There's no reason for that. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you there is. There's no reason for that. You go to your nurse manager. If your nurse manager doesn't fix it, call that doc up yourself. Okay, what are we going to do? What's the plan? That don't work. You've got, even at night and on the weekends, you've got an AOC. You've got an administrator on call. I'd like to see the administrator on call, please.
See, people don't know that. They go to the hospital, they just trust whoever's there and say, okay, we'll do what you say.
No, you start down the food chain. You
Okay.
start down the food chain till you get what you need and your needs addressed, because you have that right as a patient.
Right.
As a patient, and don't stop until you do.
All right. Give me a miracle story. Like, anything ever happened in the past, just a miracle happened. It's like unexplained.
Yeah, absolutely. And this was probably 20 years into my career or so. I had just come back from being off for a period of time, and they asked me to work with anesthesia, which is fine. But part of my job working with anesthesia is responding to in-house emergencies. So, which sometimes I don't like, because you're walking blind. You're walking in blind. Not knowing what's wrong with the patient, not knowing what happened. You're just seeing and treating. I got called over to the ER to cold water drowning. And they were, of course, the hospital thing is you're not dead till you're warm and dead. So the body temperature, no matter what that rhythm says and the cold and anything says, until that patient is normothermic, you code them. You keep coding them. Hours, you keep coding them. We coded this little fella, 2 years old.
Wow.
2 years old, head full of blonde curls, laying on that gurney, little tiny underoos with dinosaurs on them. Never forget him as long as I live. Never forget his face. Never forget anything about him. And we had coded that little fella for over 2 hours, and finally got his body temperature up to normal, and they were just fixing to call the code.
You mean no pulse?
Mm-hmm. Nothing.
Nothing for 2 hours.
Nothing for 2 hours. And we were just fixing to call the code where he, for time of death, and look up and see a little blip on the monitor. Here comes another little blip. Another little blip. He regains a pulse. So we continue stabilizing him and ship his butt over to Children's.
Yeah.
We didn't want that little thing there. He survived. He survived with no apparent brain damage and no apparent organ failure.
Are you kidding me?
Mm-mm.
Wow.
Nothing but God, buddy. Nothing but God.
You ever see him later? You ever see him later in life?
No. And that's one thing about my job that I wished I could see sometimes, is see him later.
And see how they turned out and everything.
See how they did.
2 hours.
2 hours.
Wow.
2 hours. So you don't give up.
Divine intervention.
That's exactly what it was.
Cool. Jake, you got any questions? I think you've asked some good ones.
Don't make it hard, please.
Yeah.
I saw something crazy on Twitter.
Jake.
Oh, no. Here comes Twitter.
Let you know how I am, Jake.
About what?
Just gory stuff.
Well, it's not gory per se. It's like
I just don't want to see
it
someone.
probably was gory, and then it wasn't gory.
I just don't want to see an active video of someone dying.
No, this is a happy story. Hold
Oh,
on.
happy is what I want to see.
Yeah.
See, that's what I mean. If it's a happy ending's always fine then.
Happy is good.
Yeah, happy's fine with me.
We like
Just
funny and
pause.
happy.
Yeah.
Pause.
Yeah, we'll pause. So you bring it up.
Hold on.
2 hours. That's incredible. That stuff wear you out. That makes the job hard. Long day.
So I'm going to just show it right here. Because I don't feel like pulling it up. But see that? That's his hand. And they attached it to his foot momentarily so it could like borrow veins and arteries and
And the
blood
blood
and stuff.
Nerve and blood supply.
Yeah.
Wow.
What do you think of that?
Pretty damn cool.
Wow.
Yep.
That's technology. It's just advances and stuff. Okay, so my last question, all right, because we've been going for 5 hours now. Not really, but here's my last question. Have practices changed? Things that you guys knew to be true 20 years ago that just now it's not the way you do it?
practices have changed 180 degrees 3 times around.
Okay.
I felt like years and years ago that I could take better care of my patients. I felt like that I had better outcomes with my patients because I actually had time to take care of them and to meet the needs, because in taking care of the patient, you also have to take care of the family. You have to see the family dynamics and try to incorporate their care into that. It's not just fixing a broken leg. It's making sure that when he gets home, Mama can help take care of him.
Mm-hmm.
And he has what he needs. And now it's very, very hard because I just don't feel like that I can spend the amount of time with my patient that I need to. And I think we all feel that way because we're pushed from room to room to room so quick. They're, with medical records and the computer, you feel like you make love to a computer all day.
Wow.
Instead of taking care of your patients. You're timed and penalized that if I sign medicine out for a patient at a certain time, according to what your facility policy is, if I sign a pain pill out at a certain time and I have not given it and documented it within another time frame, I'm flagged.
Mm.
And then, you get so many flags, then you get a lovely little meeting with the director for your medicating practices. Never mind that when you had that pain pill out fixing to go to Joe's room, Betty over here had fallen out of bed or was throwing up with nothing to throw up in or something of that nature. We're penalized for this. And that's what's making everybody just say, I hate to say this, screw it. Because it's just not worth it anymore when you're doing the very best you can do.
Mm. Good stuff. Well, thank you. Thank you for making us laugh today.
Thank
you for sharing. Well,
probably a little too much, but
no. Laughing's good, but the placenta thing, I probably will never forget. So that's all I remember from this podcast is that people eat that, which is fine. To each their own.
Each their own.
But it's different, and I've never heard of it. So, thank you, Carolyn Tate, for coming
You're
on.
Welcome.
Cool.
You're so welcome.
Awesome.